pick your class and
earn your battle points.
Because it's time for the Star Wars Battlefront Podcast. Welcome to episode 183 of the Star Wars Battlefront Podcast. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, joined by my brother and co-host, Sam Goodwin.
Hello there.
In this episode, we're going over all of the details on the Rolly Boys update and our thoughts and impressions.
Let's get started.
As you can tell, both of us are sick. That's why this episode of the Battlefront Podcast is a little later than we usually post them. We try to get them recorded on Thursday and uploaded on Friday or Saturday. Here we are recording on Sunday, and I hope to get it out on Monday. But let's get into the full details in between last episode. Actually, so we recorded last episode. I was in the process of editing it, and the update information dropped. So we weren't able to cover it, but last episode we went over the communication of the game in 2020, what our thoughts are on it, and a whole bunch of other topics that we discussed on that episode. Someone on YouTube was like, "Did this get recorded before the update and the details?" I was like, "Yeah, sadly, we weren't able to get it lined up in time for the update, but here we are." We've had plenty of time to play the new updates. I've played a lot of BB8, not as much BB9E, but mostly BB8. So right off the bat, let's go over just a highlight of the things that were brought in this update. We've got obviously BB8 and BB9E. We also got the new trilogy for Capital Supremacy, as well as the new trilogy in Instant Action, which I greatly enjoy. We have some big news too. Battlefront 2 is going back to the original trilogy, but before we get to that, what are our thoughts on BB8, BB9E, how they play in co-op, how they play in Capital Supremacy, and how they play in the other game modes?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They feel like more of a slightly better reinforcement than a hero or a villain, I'd say. They're decent and they're pretty good in co-op and Capital Supremacy, just because there's a variety of different trooper classes, reinforcements, and heroes. But I've noticed they really struggle in heroes versus villains. They just can't really hold up to the power and might of the other heroes and villains.
Sometimes, depending on how good you are, because I've seen some insane gameplay where a BB-8 took down the entire team.
Hacks. I call hacks.
So he's one of those...
This is obviously first impressions.
Yeah.
Just like
BB-8 and BB-9E are very technical heroes.
Yeah, this is just for me playing... first thoughts and all this. I haven't really spent much time. I've played them in all the game modes and spent some time in offline and versus, which you got wrecked as BB-8. I completely destroyed you because you can't really defeat Darth Vader as BB-8.
I'm not as good with BB-8 as other people are.
It
takes a lot of maneuvering, and you
really
have to
technical character, so
you
really have to put some time into it to get some real improvements on that.
You have to dodge, you have to be able to roll around because he's extremely fast and mobile, and you have to use that to your advantage.
And then his dark counterpart, BB9E, I feel like he's a little weaker than BB8.
He definitely is weaker. You have to use him smarter. So there isn't as much, I'm going to go into this big group like you can with BB8, but greatly enjoyed with maps that you can throw people into pits or off of things, because BB9E's center ability is
the shock.
Yeah, so his center ability, instead of cable spin, is just like a shock aura, basically. Throws people out of the vicinity and then shocks them as well, so it stuns them.
Right. Well, yeah, like you said, it's good for throwing people off, but it throws them out of the damage circle, so they don't really get continuously damaged like BB-8's cable spin, which is kind of unfortunate. And I was really underwhelmed by his smoke ability. The shroud of...
Yeah, it's more useful on Capital Supremacy, I find.
Yeah, and it didn't really produce as much smoke as I would have hoped.
8 out of 10, not as much smoke.
That's 6 out of 10. Yeah, I feel like it could be way denser, because I feel like the smoke grenades get, in Battlefield 2015, where it should be what he does. Because, it's just smoke. There's weapons that can see through that, so I don't see why they should be trying... We'll get definitely some patches and some buffs for him, so I always say it's better to give them underpowered than start them off overpowered because you get over nerfs, and I'd rather see them buff than nerf, in my personal opinion. So I really feel like in the future he could be a really good villain.
Definitely.
But obviously these both are technical characters, and we'll see how they pan out really in the future.
Yeah, they're really fun. I like BB. I love playing them. Like, I have a fun time playing them on the maps. There are some people that are saying that they should be nerfed because they're extremely overpowered, but I don't find that. I think they launch with a good balance of abilities.
Right.
Something I didn't realize until I was going through the notes to prepare for the episode is that BB8 and BB9E have passive abilities. One is technical support. They both count as 2 units when capturing a command post or activating an objective device much faster. I didn't realize that. That's a really cool thing. Another thing that they have periodically regenerates the main health of friendly characters around them, and then upon defeating an opponent, BB9E will receive some health back, which is really awesome. BB8 has swift reaction, which increases the cooldown speed of nearby friendly characters' abilities, as well as health on kill. And you can really take advantage of that. I do find that BB8 and BB9E don't give as many battle points when you play, or when you get capture objectives or kill people. You don't gain as much, especially on kills, which I was very surprised about, because I went on a 7 or 8 kill streak and didn't get that many battle points back for it. I think it was like 400 or 500.
Yeah, and as far as the overpoweredness, I guess that comes from the small hitbox and the speed.
Yes, because they are very fast boys.
So I guess that balances out the health and the abilities too. BB8 just a really good flanker, and like Ajon Kloss has a lot of foliage under, and he can really, it's super hard to see him through that, especially BB9E since he's darker.
Yeah. How do you feel about the new trilogy maps on Capital Supremacy and Instant Action?
I mean, it's already been added, in my personal opinion, so it's just nice that they finally completed that.
Specifically, what are your thoughts on the transition and the new ships? Because I love them.
It's cool to see you go into a Star Destroyer for sure. Those are awesome. And the thing was, dude, this game mode takes forever. Oh my gosh.
I was hoping you'd say something about that.
I was playing for 45 minutes on the base map, capturing, and it's just a circle. You'll have 3 for a while, and then they'll have 3 for a while, and then you'll have all of them for a little bit. They'll have all of them for a little bit.
Yeah, it takes stupid amounts of time.
And then my game froze before I could even get to the second phase. So I had to quit out of Battlefront. So I waited all this time. I think we're at 91%.
No.
And then it quit out. Yeah, they need to shorten this game mode. I mean, I'm a fan of long game modes, but this is a little excessive for sure. And the original, the original Capital Supremacy as it came out seemed a lot shorter and more manageable with the tickets and the troops like that. I mean,
but it was still very long.
Yeah, it was still on the long side because you go back and forth. But I like this one because it seems like the original PlayStation 2, Xbox Battlefront, because you're just going around capturing. Control. It feels like its own game mode within the secondary thing because it takes so long.
I love the new ships for Capital Supremacy on the new trilogy maps. I think that the new trilogy maps are much better than Clone Wars Capital Supremacy, and that may just be because it's just something new and shiny, but I greatly enjoy the maps more on the new trilogy than I do on the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I think the one I did the other day was...
I love the ships.
Was Jakku, I believe. Yeah, that's not my favorite map, but Ajon Kloss is really cool. That's a really good map. I still think I do prefer Geonosis as my favorite Capital Supremacy map. It seems like it fits it better. But that one was like specifically made for Capital Supremacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one seems a lot larger, which is really nice.
Yeah, on the note, Capital Supremacy is a very long game mode. I was so at the new office, we have really fast internet. We're still working on getting it soundproofed and all of that fun stuff, as well as getting drop downs for like Ethernet ports in the office. But in the building, it's got really fast Wi-Fi, as well as a common area with an 85-inch 4K TV and very fast internet. I was playing Capital Supremacy on Ajon Kloss, and it turned out to be a 45-minute to an hour game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I was also testing streaming to Mixer. Eventually, once we get the Ethernet and all of that set up, I want to start streaming to YouTube, just because I think that'll be more active. But we can stream to Mixer right now. I tested that out, so in the process of doing the research and getting all the equipment. If you are familiar with streaming technology and that kind of thing, I've done it in the past, but if you have like good settings and good settings for like OBS as well as Elgato, because we've got the Elgato HD60S, the one with the USB-C, would be much appreciated if you could leave a comment on this video if you're watching on YouTube, or leave us an email at battlefrontpodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter or Instagram at SWB Podcast. Be greatly appreciated. Help us out a ton. Before we get to the big news, what are your thoughts on Galactic Assault being moved again? So now it's Supremacy. Yeah, it's not Capital Supremacy anymore. It's Supremacy, as well as it's multiplayer and then single player. Galactic Assault's not on the main menu anymore.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I kind of like the UI right now. I like how you can pick certain, like the Resistance or the
that's really nice.
Prequel. That's really nice to have an option like that.
The thing people have,
I just wish it had it in every game mode, because I was going to Heroes versus Villains and wanted to play new Asian class. And I think it was Hero Showdown I was trying to do. It'd be nice to have an option on the map. Try to get queued up on that, because currently it's just restricted to the bigger game modes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we touched on that last episode as well.
A lot of people have been having issues about Galactic Assault being moved, specifically because it's just like a sign of DICE slowly killing Galactic Assault. Galactic Assault is a really fun game mode. It's something that a lot of people enjoy, especially if they don't want to play Clone Wars content.
Yeah, so it's a nice option to have, and I think they did that in the Battlefront 2015. They were trying to slowly kill off Walker Assault with some of their other game modes they were adding.
Yeah, the thing that the defense is it's not getting any, and because it's not getting any
maps,
a lot of people aren't playing it, and it's just this self-fulfilling prophecy where, oh yeah, we're not going to update it because a lot of people are, because there aren't a whole lot of people playing it, but a whole lot of people aren't playing it because all of the new stuff is going into Capital Supremacy or now Supremacy.
Right, that's pretty obvious. When you have new content, obviously everyone's going to be trying that out for the first month or so. But it's just nice to have some diversity in the bigger game modes, because normally in these games we have one, at least in this game, we had Galactic Assault for a while. And it was nice to see this kind of transition to Capital Supremacy, but that doesn't mean we should have one or the other. I think we should have both, because it's a good diverse option for the bigger game modes if you want to play.
The last like huge update that they got for Galactic Assault in terms of like content was, I think, Crate. That was a while ago.
Yeah, they struggle with adding content to pre-existing game modes. Like Starfighter Assault has gotten almost no really good support since the game
since
came
the last
out.
Jedi update where they added a new hero.
Yeah, and space is basically all the same, but the only difference is debris or the planet,
but
which
like
is
we
nice
mentioned,
to see have a background for that.
Yeah, but like we mentioned last episode, Dennis Brownwell did at least tease that we should be getting more content for Starfighter Assault, and it may not be in space. It could be like above,
right? Like above
map.
like
above an Aegon class or above insert map here,
which I would love to see. But the point of the matter is that they just have a hard time supporting pre-existing content, like I said earlier. That goes for the smaller game modes. I mean, even just adding variations of the bigger maps, they have a problem with that I find. I feel like every big map should have smaller map counterparts that should be distributed between the smaller game modes.
Mm-hmm.
That should be, you shouldn't have to ask a question about that. That should be inherent, that they should add those smaller game mode maps because of the bigger. That just makes sense. Like, yeah, I just don't see why they wouldn't do that.
The new maps would be great if they added it to Galactic Assault, just because not everyone plays Supremacy because it's such a long game mode, even compared to Galactic Assault. Galactic Assault's one of the longer ones, but that Supremacy now multiplies that by 2 or 3 when you play.
For real, yeah. Like just the first wave I did was like 3 matches of Galactic Assault. It felt like, my gosh.
It's great. It's great fun when you have the time, but not everyone has the time.
Right, and if you quit out, you just forfeit all your score and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just wasted your time. And then it hurts your team because they just lost a player, and that's never fun.
Exactly.
It's good. If you have a lot of time, go to Capital Supremacy. If you don't have as much time, you can go to Galactic Assault.
Yeah, or the smaller game
Just
modes.
diversity is the best option for any game in general.
Now let's go on to the big news that we did not cover last week. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going back to the original trilogy with Age of Rebellion. Now, this is from the release notes. As January comes to a close, our attention turns to February, and with it, the confirmation that we will return to the original trilogy and the Age of Rebellion. This includes bringing specific planets to both co-op and later on Supremacy. We know that many of you have been requesting this, and we're incredibly excited at the prospect of playing as Luke, Leia, Darth Vader, and more through both co-op and Supremacy. With the arrival of the original trilogy, we will make a name change. Capital Supremacy will simply be known as Supremacy. We're renaming this game mode to encompass all eras, as the upcoming original trilogy variant will be fought exclusively on the ground. Let's stop there and go over our thoughts on that. I'm kind of disappointed. They do explain it. They said we looked at experiences that both Death Star 2 and Scarif would offer, deciding that the Age of Rebellion would be focused on ground-based combat, which is a better fit for some of the more iconic locations we have available. It's hard to imagine leaving the Death Star to go to a capital ship, let alone having to deal with the shield that surrounds Scarif. But don't worry, it's still the exact same great Supremacy experience, just focused on ground-based gameplay. So they're making it basically instant action for original trilogy. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I love the diversity that the ships add. And it's understandable for a couple, like they said, Scarif. Also, we're getting Scarif.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. But that kind of like differs, this game mode from Galactic Assault, is the space combat as well. You go to space on a different ship. Now it's just going to be the default game mode. It feels like it's just going to be like that long phase at the first part.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be the phase that nobody
yeah, everyone that wants to get through it. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
It feels like they're taking a step back.
Definitely. If I want to play something where it's only ground combat, what I'll do is go to co-op or instant action.
But how cool would that be, going from the Death Star to a Star Destroyer? I mean, how awesome would that be?
The original Star Destroyers, not just like a Star Destroyer, the original ones that are in the movie that we're all familiar with.
Even it makes sense for Scarif too, because they have the Star Destroyers up above. In Rogue One, that's what was about to destroy the planet. Was the Death Star was over there, and there was surrounded by Star Destroyers. So that would make sense from going to the ground of Scarif to a Star Destroyer too.
I think what they're talking about is specifically for the Rebels, how it's going to be. It doesn't work canonically or whatever for it, but I love the gameplay that is in the transition to get to those capital ships. I love that. And maybe don't add it for Scarif, but there are other maps, and I think I would like that diversity if it was like, okay, for Scarif you don't get to go to a Supremacy ship, a capital ship, but on these other maps like Tatooine, Mos Eisley, you can definitely make the argument that you can go to a capital ship.
Especially like Hoth too. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
The beautiful, iconic Rebel capital ship. Like you said, the Star Destroyers that are legendary for their look. I think it's a missed opportunity. I would love to see this possibly changed or made for only specific game modes or maps or whatever. I would. One of my favorite parts of Capital Supremacy, or now Supremacy, is to make it to the goal of getting it to the capital ship and having the success of blowing up one of them. Or defending
that's the best part, is like the rush to get to the ships, to get the pickup ships, to get up there.
I play Capital Supremacy for the capital ships.
Right, yeah, and the second wave is always the most fun too.
Because it changes from super wide combat to super tense close quarters.
You have like a finite amount of troops that you have to manage to get the objective completed. Yeah, the game mode Supremacy was about from 2015, so this is basically what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think
that's a mildly disappointing.
The ground-based combat is some of my least favorite on Capital Supremacy, but we'll see how it changes. I don't think this will be a BB8 edition where everyone was kind of hating on BB8 and we turned out to really love it. I don't think this will end up being like that. I just think it'll feel less than it could be.
Right.
Let's talk about Scarif. So Scarif, back from 2015 Star Wars Battlefront.
I will not fail.
One of my favorite maps. I love the Rogue One update for Battlefront 2015. It was the final one that we got for the game. It came with Jyn Erso as well as Krennic, some very unique heroes. So I'm greatly looking forward to what's going to be coming next for the game, especially for the original trilogy. What are your thoughts on the addition of Scarif?
Yeah, like you said, that's one of my favorite maps that was added in Battlefront 2015, and that was one of my favorite updates too. That was a really good update. So yeah, it's nice to see some love from the previous game getting some imports, which we've wanted to see for a while.
Yeah, we were talking about last episode how we would love to see Battlefront 2015 maps carried over some more.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the better ones. I think that Scarif and like Cloud City, the city itself, are my two favorite maps. So yeah, those already, it's off to a good start so far for sure. Jabba's Palace was cool too. All we need is Sullust now. Yes,
Sullust would be great. And again, like you're saying, the Cloud City map on Besseman was a great map. It was one of my favorites. I loved running through the city. That's why I would really like Coruscant coming to the game at some point in the future.
Yeah, but with the addition of Scarif, I hope it brings Jyn Erso and Director Krennic too.
Yeah, I would love that. Oh my, could you imagine? Sure. They say nothing about it. They say, oh yeah, we're getting some reinforcements. We're getting reinforcements for the next update for Scarif. We get maybe we get, it's either like skins for the troopers, or we get the sand troopers as just like a reinforcement, and then something for the resistance or something along those lines. Or could you imagine if it was a K2 unit? That'd be awesome for both sides, because they have K2SO or whatever. Or
and
at
I
least
know
for
I know in 2015 Battlefront they had the guards they could spawn.
Yes,
that'd be so cool that they add Krennic and reintroduce that mechanic too, because that was my favorite things, is when you're spawning in the screen and obviously you can't get a hero because they're the tokens, but you could get a reinforcement. Palpatine, Krennic, and Leia, I think, were the three that could do that. That'd be so cool.
Be awesome. And I would love to see it like if it was just a surprise saying, oh yeah, we're getting these reinforcements, and it's the ones that we love from like Krennic, and then on the other side we get something insert obscure alien or whatever from Rogue One, and then they're like, oh, also we got Krennic and Jyn Erso here. I think the community would lose their mind, because those are some fan favorite characters there, especially for Battlefront 2015 players. And there is the crowd. Dennis Brownville tweeted that in December the player base doubled, so there are a lot of new players that more than likely didn't play Battlefront 2015.
Yeah, so
they'd be able to experience it.
Right, this will be like new content for them and returning content for us, so it's a win-win for sure.
Now, this isn't saying it's confirmation or we're going to be super upset. This is just us thinking outside the box, for sure, that it'd be really cool to see.
Because when they re-added the Jabba Palace, they added new skins for Han Solo, which kind of tied in for that. So hopefully they release Krennic and Jyn Erso. That'd be cool to see.
Definitely.
And maybe I could start the phase for reintroducing some of the original trilogy characters from the previous game.
Because Battlefront 2015 has such a great and robust back catalog.
This is the original trilogy reign coming into play here.
Yes.
Which only makes sense, because this is the only era that hasn't been touched on in the game. Yeah, obviously there were some that were introduced on launch, but there hasn't been a season dedicated to this era.
Yes, I'm super excited for the Age of Rebellion. It's going to be a really good time.
You are beaten. It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
We'd be curious to hear what you have to say, the listener. You can leave a comment on YouTube if you're watching this on the YouTube channel. Like I said before, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, battlefrontpodcast@gmail.com. We'd greatly appreciate that. What are your thoughts on the Age of Resistance? What would you like to see added in terms of reinforcements, heroes? Because there's a whole wide range of characters we could choose from. I think that's about it for this episode of Battlefront Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I've been your host, Sage Goodwin.
And I'm Sam Goodwin.
You can follow us on Twitter at SWB Podcast, twitter.com/SWB Podcast. It's a great place to follow us. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can also follow us on Instagram. Posted a meme on there, and I got almost 500 likes. We're sitting at 63 total followers. We greatly appreciate a follow there at SWB Podcast, just like our Twitter, which is we surpassed. We've got 1,222 followers on Twitter, and we'd be so glad to have you. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Battlefront Podcast. We greatly appreciate it that way. You can support us like friend of the podcast, Joseph Loera. It helps us keep the subscription for W Audition, which we run the show through, edit-wise, as well as future upgrades to the office, and helping us get to live streaming more frequently. greatly appreciate that help there. You can also support us on PayPal, paypal.me/TieDyeSheep, TYEDYESHEEP, like friend of the podcast, Daniel Schilling. Another great way you can support the show, completely free, is through leaving us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you find podcasts. We would greatly appreciate it if you drop us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the show, on the content. It also helps other listeners when they find the show to see what's going on as well. We'd also like to shout out Star Wars Wayfinder, Star Wars Battlefront Wayfinder, Instagram and Twitter. Definitely check those guys out. We want to do some collaborations and some partnership with them. If you've got ideas on how that could work, we'd greatly appreciate those.
Our Gmail is battlefrontpodcast@gmail.com, and also our YouTube channel is youtube.com/the Star Wars Battlefront Podcast.
We've surpassed 520 subscribers. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much. We're looking forward to, we're looking to bring more content on there. I had some planned and then I got sick and it was just like, oh crap, I don't want to work on anything right now. We have plans to start streaming on there as well as more shorter form content. You can listen to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Wherever you find podcasts, you can find this show. As always,
thanks for listening.
And may the Force be with you. Do. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Boop, 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 doo, doo. You good in Mike, Samuel?
What?
Hey Samuel, you need to eat
What?
You need to eat more vegetables.
What?
You need to eat more vegetables, my man.